Okay, the Department of Justice was not going to assassinate Donald Trump. I can't believe I need to say it, but I guess I do. As we start things off on a Wednesday morning on KCMO, good morning. It is great to be here. So let's just put this to rest right out of the gates. Yesterday, Donald Trump put the following post up on his Truth Social page. I just came out of the Biden witch hunt trial in Manhattan. The icebox. It's very funny. He talks about how damn cold it is in that courtroom. I think it's cold in this office sometimes. It sounds like Trump's really shaking in his boots there for different reasons in the Manhattan courthouse. And was shown reports that crooked Joe Biden's DOJ, in their illegal and unconstitutional raid of Mar-a-Lago, authorized the FBI to use deadly lethal force. Now we know for sure that Joe Biden is a serious threat to democracy. He is mentally unfit to hold office. And then he says 25th Amendment. See, Donald Trump's getting screwed every which way he goes. That's indisputable. Whether you're going to vote for the guy or not, you've got to admit that these trials are nothing but political, to use his words, witch hunts. That's what they are. Even if you can't stand the guy, you've got to admit that. But what's happened now is Donald Trump has floated out this idea that Joe Biden and the DOJ authorized the FBI to use deadly lethal force. And that has led to some of his diehard supporters and some of his hanger-oners like Marjorie Taylor Greene to put up on X last night, the Biden DOJ and FBI were planning to assassinate Donald Trump and gave the green light, says Marjorie Taylor Greene. Does everyone get it yet? What are Republicans going to do about it? I tried to oust our speaker who funded Biden's DOJ and FBI, but Democrats stopped it. No, Republicans stopped it too. Marjorie Taylor Greene, let's be clear. That is a wildly irresponsible post from Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's the kind of stuff that gets people killed. That's the kind of stuff that we should expect better from our elected leaders on. This is all false. Neither the DOJ nor the FBI were planning to assassinate Donald Trump. The language in question, all right, and I put this up last night on social media so you can see it for yourself. The language in question is standard procedure. When you go to the justice.gov website and actually look at the boilerplate policy statements that get put up there during any kind of an FBI raid like this. And there's a bunch of reasons and things that you can look at. The FBI, first off, knew Donald Trump wasn't there. That raid on Mar-a-Lago was coordinated with Secret Service in advance. So the notion that Marjorie Taylor Greene is floating out there, that the Biden DOJ and the FBI were planning to assassinate Donald Trump and gave the green light, that's nuts. That's absolutely insane. And there's a lot of clues here, and I put this up on X last night so you can see it for yourself at Pete Mundo. One of the clues that this is kind of a generic boilerplate DOJ use of force policy, not something that necessarily is cooked up for Mar-a-Lago, let alone like being ordered by Joe Biden. Please, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that Joe Biden is, calling for Donald Trump to be assassinated, but then also admit he doesn't know how to put on his underwear. But both those things can't be true. You can't pick and choose when you want one of them to be true. But you can see, based on the documentation, that it looks like it's pretty boilerplate stuff. The policy statement, use of deadly force with the Department of Justice. So this is one of those things that is getting blown way out of proportion. It doesn't mean that Donald Trump isn't getting a raw deal from the DOJ. It doesn't mean he's not being attacked by his political opponents during an election year. It doesn't mean that this is not coming off like third world banana republic type stuff. It is. This guy's an incredible chance to be the next president of the United States. And for the last several weeks, he has not been able to campaign like a normal candidate because he's sitting in a courtroom on behalf of people who ran for office saying they were going to target him, saying they were going to come after him. Right? Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all these people in New York who are now getting what they wanted. And that's what makes this as disturbing as anything else. But there's no reason to take this to the next level and use this kind of sensationalism to prove a point, because it's irresponsible and dangerous, whether it's Donald Trump or whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, taking it to the nth level. And people are going to see that stuff from Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they're going to believe it. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene did get community noted on X, and, frankly, I'm glad she did. Community notes from X has been great. It's basically calling out the BS, and it's usually done more so, it seems like, on that app and on that website to those on the far left. But you know what? If people on the right need it, so be it. You can't have Marjorie Taylor Greene saying stuff like this that, Donald Trump was potentially going to be assassinated by the DOJ. I mean, that is so irresponsible on so many levels. Now, that being said, it was quite a scene at the New York City courthouse yesterday where Missouri U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt was out. He was looking sharp, nice white shirt with the old red tie, and he said this about the Donald Trump trial.
As a legal matter, this case is a total joke. In a broader sense, you want to talk about threats to democracy? That's what this is across the street. The idea that the Democrats not only try to keep him off the ballot, Donald Trump, but now throw him in jail for the rest of his life because they know he's going to win in November. And the only way they think they can get after it is this unprecedented lawfare. We have never, ladies and gentlemen, we've never seen anything like this in this country. So I know this can kind of be normalized as you've been covering it. This is outrageous. If this were happening in any country, any other country, our State Department will be warning people not to go to that country because it's a banana republic. And more broadly speaking, let me just say this, from a political perspective, the American people see what's happening. This has added jet fuel to his campaign. You want to know why he's rising in the polls? Because the American people understand the injustice that's happening, and they don't want to see their country turn into a banana republic.
That was Missouri U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt in New York City outside the courthouse yesterday. And everything that Eric Schmidt there said in large part rings true. Now, I think Trump is rising not just because of the legal attacks, but also because, people are comparing the last 3.5 years to Donald Trump's pre-COVID years and being like, you know what, those years were a hell of a lot better. Guy might have sent out a tweet once in a while that was a little nutty, but gosh, my life was a heck of a lot better. I had a lot more money in my pocket back then. And they're kind of like, letting the sideshow stuff fall by the wayside. The case made by Eric Schmidt is spot on. And that's the only case that needs to be made, whether it's from Donald Trump or any of his supporters. There is no reason to go down the road of the DOJ was set to use deadly force at Mar-a-Lago. You only typically sensationalize things when the facts are not on your side. And the facts are overwhelmingly on the side of Donald Trump on this trial being what we all know it is, which is a politically motivated and a politically coordinated attack by his opponents from the federal level all the way down to the New York City local level. That's what they're doing. You've got the sympathy. It's building. There is no need to add jet fuel to any of that with some of these accusations and then have, your not so bright sycophants like Marjorie Taylor Greene out there claiming that, you're going to get assassinated. That's not good for anybody involved. So I just want to make sure that, you might see headlines like that. You might see stuff on social media. It's a stretch to say the least. It's a lie. And I want to make sure we're all on the same page on that as we get the show started here on a Wednesday on KCMO. And by the way, Eric Schmidt is going to be joining me at 7:35 today after his trip to New York City yesterday. So we will have the Missouri U.S. Senator on in an hour and 20 minutes here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM and streaming, as always, for free on the KCMO Talk Radio app and KCMOTalkRadio.com. This feels like a no-brainer in Missouri, and if it gets done, it'll be courtesy of one of our own, Tony Luetkemeyer, up in Platte and Buchanan counties. So a proposal recently passed the Missouri General Assembly that would make it a felony to flee a law enforcement officer in a vehicle. frankly, I'm kind of surprised it's not already, if I'm being totally honest. I was like, wait, this isn't already like a felony to flee a law enforcement officer in a car and put other people at risk, John?
Yeah, I would have thought so. I wouldn't have thought that mattered from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but
I know. It's like, what are we living in the Wild West here in Missouri? Yeah, flee the cops. That's a misdemeanor. Like, what? No, that should be a felony. So the measure's being called Valentine's Law, and it's named after St. Louis County Detective Antonio Valentine, who was killed after a suspect fleeing police crashed into him head-on in December of 2021. So Tony Luetkemeyer saying, in regards to this law, whenever you have a high-speed chase, it's extremely dangerous, not only for the police officer who's pursuing the suspect, but also the public at large. That's exactly right. I mean, think about it. If you are fleeing the police, it's not about you just putting a cop at risk because he's got to chase you at, 100, 120 miles an hour, weaving through traffic. You are putting dozens, if not hundreds, of innocent people who are also on the roads at risk, in danger of some type of high-speed collision. Usually police chases are not like O.J. Simpson, driving down the freeway, wide open spaces at 35 miles an hour. That's not your run-of-the-mill police chase. Typically, you've got people at high speeds, you've got pedestrians, you got other drivers at risk in situations like that, right?
Had one just Saturday.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
I think it was Independence pursuing someone and who just crossed over to Kansas City.
Yep.
And so had a fatality there.
That's right. Yeah, that's so true. That was over the weekend. So this would make it a Class D felony for anyone fleeing a law enforcement officer, punishable by a minimum of 1 year in prison without the possibility of probation, parole, or early release. If that high-speed chase results in injuries, a convicted suspect could spend a maximum of 15 years in prison. And John's right, pointing out what happened in Independence on Saturday afternoon. According to Independence Police, Joe W. Williams of Raytown fled from an officer after being pulled over for a minor traffic violation. A high-speed chase ensued, ending with Williams crashing into a tree in the back of a strip mall near 31st and Olive in KC, about 10 miles from where the traffic stop occurred. According to Kansas City Police, Williams struck two vehicles before crashing into the tree. Two people in one of those vehicles suffered non-life-threatening injuries, and Williams himself did not survive the crash. So that's the kind of stuff that, unfortunately, especially here in Jackson County, where the worst of the worst actors are emboldened to try to flee law enforcement because they have no respect for law enforcement in Jackson County, it seems. This is incredibly important if you're a Jackson County resident. But even if you're not, even if you're an area resident, this stuff can cross city lines. This stuff can cross state lines. And it's a no-brainer to have this law be one that is getting a lot of attention in Missouri. So hopefully Valentine's Law is part of a larger bill that Governor Mike Parson will review and then ultimately sign, because there's no reason for this to not be a felony, especially with the issues we're dealing with here in Kansas City. All right, so I'm all on board with this. If we need to get Tony Luetkemeyer on to talk about it, we will. But I hope the governor signs this one easy peasy, John.
It's an ingredient in the Cameron Lamb, Eric DeValkenair case, isn't it? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's right.
I understood it.
Yep,
right?
Yep, that's right.
Fleeing officers in pursuit. Yeah,
if guys at least know that, hey, I'm not getting out of this no matter what. I've got a felony on my hands no matter what. For some of them, it's just another felony. But I've got a felony on my hands no matter what. We've got to make sure that we use some caution here in whatever we're going to do. I don't want the extra felony on my record. Maybe they think twice. Now, it's going to take a little bit for guys to figure out, wait, fleeing the cops is now a felony? That used to be a joyride for me. No, now, the state's going to actually get you. And this feels like a no-brainer as we try to create new tools to clean up crime in parts of Kansas City, St. Louis, and frankly, around the entire state of Missouri. In the meantime, yesterday, we got pretty lucky when it came to some of the severe weather. I feel like all spring, we've had these days where it's like, keep an eye out. Today could be a day of severe weather, but we're never in the bullseye. It's always like to the south or up to the north. And yesterday was very much that kind of a day. We had that line of storms blow through, but, to me, that was just a run-of-the-mill thunderstorm. It wasn't anything crazy. But I know some of the tornado sirens went off around town. So, man, that's what happens. You got a rookie on the job, and the tornado sirens were going off in certain parts of Kansas City. And I guess you can blame, according to reports, the Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department. The Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department has issued an apology after accidentally setting off citywide tornado sirens while issuing a warning to southern Cass County that had a brief tornado warning. So the system moves through and the sirens are going off in the area. And I'm seeing Twitter blowing up like, the sirens are going off. What do we do? The sirens are going off. And, if you're John Anthony, you open up the garage, you pop open the lawn chair, and you crack a beer.
Get the igloo out.
Yep, that's right. Get a KC Beer Co. Dunkel, and you sit there and you have a good time.
I did want to read further because I was confused about if Kansas City had jurisdiction over the Cass County.
Well, yeah, I was confused by that, too.
I could understand a person picking it up and misunderstanding what they're reading, if that's what that meant.
I don't know how Kansas City's fire department would have jurisdiction over the tornado sirens in southern Cass County.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
I was curious about that.
Yeah.
So look at it.
I don't know
Find out more about that if possible.
Cass County doesn't have, they just don't have the people, so they defer
possible. Yeah.
to Kansas City, Missouri proper. Mm-hmm. But I agree. I'm like, man, some rookie hit the wrong button. And listen, in radio, we've all been there. We've hit the wrong button before.
Yeah.
So I understand that. Mm-hmm. Now, in radio, when we hit the wrong button, it just means someone's mic. I'll never forget the first newscast I did my first day in Oklahoma in Woodward as a 22-year-old. I thought I had the mic on, and the mic was not on. So, that happens. But, no one's life is at risk. No one's thinking they're about to get blasted by a tornado when a mistake like that takes place. But in this case, a lot of you might have been freaking out yesterday hearing the sirens when it was just a rookie error from the Kansas City Fire Department.
Well, better safe than sorry for one thing.
Well, true.
So at least if you hear the sirens, you look up at maybe, as opposed to I don't think sirens went off here the other night.
Sunday night?
They didn't go off. That. So we've had both sides of the issue.
You're right. Sunday night through Johnson County, no sirens went off. And the National Weather Service, they're claiming that, the storm did not meet basically their regulations to go off, which take that for whatever it's worth. What if I told you that it was possible to improve a stadium without your money? I know you probably think
talk about a bombshell.
that is impossible, but no, it's not. So this dropped yesterday. The Bengals announcing they're going to make a private investment of $100 to $120 million in upgrades to Paycor Stadium there in Cincinnati. Now, this comes at a time when the Bengals have been trying to extend their lease. They are dumping $100+ million into a building where they're committed to play for only 3 more seasons. So they don't even know. Now, it probably will be their home. They got to figure out the lease, figure out how to negotiate this. But you're probably wondering, what's the catch? Well, someone's kicking in something else, right? That's how it was going to go here in Kansas City. You were going to extend a 3/8 sales tax. You were going to chip in $500 million. The Hunt family, who we love. I mean, we know that they've backed Harrison Butker here the last few days. They've certainly, done an incredible job on that front. Have a lot of respect for the family, top to bottom. But remember how this was going to go in Jackson County. The county would chip in about $500 million over 30, 40 years. The team would kick in about $300 million, and you'd have an $800 million renovation. And it was kind of an underwhelming proposal, but, it was the Chiefs. And frankly, I think if that was on the ballot by itself, it probably would have passed. It was the Royals that were the far more controversial part of that vote last month. But the Bengals just announced, and the owners approved this yesterday. They had their quarterly meetings down in Nashville, Tennessee, and the NFL owners approved this move for the Bengals to make a $100 million private investment to upgrade Paycor Stadium. And there's no strings attached. Heck, they don't even have a lease beyond the 2026 season. And they're dumping $100 million into that stadium. Now, there's no announcement yet on the news regarding a new lease. There's been nothing on that front. They're getting set to celebrate their 25th season there at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, and they're making these improvements that will make the game day experience even better, according to Bengals VP Katie Blackburn. They say, and she says, we're lucky to have a great stadium. We're proud to invest in this great asset to help make it a best-in-class facility. We love our fans and can think of no better way to celebrate our 25th season in Paycor Stadium than to announce these major improvements that will make the game day experience even better. Isn't that refreshing? To just hear a team say, $100 million for you, the fans, to enjoy the game day experience a little bit more. And we want to stay here. And are we asking you for anything? Well, at least not right now. Maybe there will be upgrades that are asked of the city or the state of Ohio when and if that time comes. But right now, even if there's something that's coming down the pipeline where there's going to be some big ask of the city of Cincinnati or the county or the state, at least politically speaking, this is brilliant. The Bengals just saying, nope, we're dumping $100 million. And by the way, this is also just like the Truman Sports Complex, just like Arrowhead. Because I was reading through some articles last night. This is not owned. This stadium is not owned by the team. It is owned by Hamilton County, Ohio. They own the stadium. And Hamilton County has asked the team and the NFL to pledge more money in exchange for the years. They want them to stay there beyond, of course, the next 3 seasons. And I don't know why you would dump $100 million into a facility that you're going to leave in 3 years. But either way, this is how you do it. Politically, this is how you do it, even if you've got an ask on the back end. Now, the statement says the team would launch major projects with construction running through 2026. They would focus on fan-facing areas, updating the video and audio systems, renovations to the suites and club lounges, concession upgrades, and stadium beautification projects. By the way, that sounds very similar to what was going to go on at Arrowhead. How come it's costing $100 million in Cincinnati and they were talking about $800 million here in Kansas City? Anyone have that answer?
Yeah, I was wondering. It doesn't sound like they're doing much more than sprucing up the place, but at least it's the effort, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the effort, and they're upgrading the suites, which will make them more money, more power to them.
Small percentage of the fan base.
Yeah, no, it's not. But once again, it's about them. They're going to invest in something that they perceive to make them more money.
Yeah. So
I'm good with that. It's their money. They do with it what they want. If they think investing millions of dollars into suites makes them that money and more back, go ahead, be my guest. That's how it's supposed to be done. And why the cost of all those things are $100 million when the Chiefs, I know they were looking at some upgrades outside the stadium, right? They were going to level the K, or somebody was going to level the K. We never got that far. Somebody was going to pay to level the K. And they were going to have like a little fan experience out there. But it wasn't all that impressive. It was like an outdoor football field is what it looked like.
Yeah, and the upgrades to the parking lot might be what costs the most because of the concrete and how much that costs nowadays.
Well, I didn't think about that because, they were going to redo parts of the parking lot. But still, $800 million? Come on.
Well, I felt like the Chiefs were hamstrung a little bit. You kind of have to say, hey, we want our neighbors out of here, which wasn't the deal because they were working together. So you couldn't say, hey, once we get these bums out of the way, we're going to put up. Yeah, so I think I felt like they were winging it anyway, so to speak, and I wasn't impressed, and they didn't equal the cost in my mind either.
No,
I'm with you.
It's like $800 million for this? Like, where's the other $650 million going? All right, someone's not giving us the full story here. And it was like, we're going to connect the upper concourse and put, kind of roofs over the top of the upper concourse. $800 million later? Come on now. The math just didn't add up, to your point, John. And yes, there's something to be said for the fact that when you look back, the Chiefs were kind of like in the spot of, okay, we want the Royals gone. We don't really have a grandiose plan right now, so let's slap something together and see what it looks like. And it was okay, but it certainly wasn't overcoming the issues that the Royals brought to the table. And that's ultimately what sunk that vote last month. And now we sit here and we just wait. Now, there was some news yesterday on that front for Kansas City. And it's not clear to me what role this is going to play. But this guy, John Rizzo, who is the minority leader of the Missouri Senate right now, he's a Democrat down there in Jeff City, but he's from Kansas City. He was offered a contract to become the executive director of the Jackson County Sports Complex Authority, replacing Jim Rowland, who retired after 18 years overseeing the Truman Sports Complex. So Rizzo told the Star that he plans on accepting the job once his attorney approves the contract language. And the 43-year-old Independence Democrat has said that he has received, as his career in Jeff City winds down due to term limits, multiple job offers, but this is the one for which he has the most passion. I reached out to somebody who was involved with the sports commission. I said, does this matter? Is this a big deal? And the response was, he'll be great at serving tacos. So I don't know if it's one big overblown story. It's not clear to me what it means, but it's the headline story this morning at the Kansas City Star. So the more information I get on it, I'll be sure to bring it to you here on KCMO. But certainly some new blood as we try to figure out the future of these two teams in our region would not be the worst thing as far as I could tell. Now, if only something could be done about, the county executive. Oh, wait, that's right. There was an election a couple of years ago, and you guys voted to keep Frank White there. So good riddance. Too bad. 913-408-7957. Missouri U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt is going to be here bottom of the hour. He was outside of the courthouse yesterday where Donald Trump, of course, has been standing trial. He will join us in 20 minutes on KCMO. How are people feeling about their money? I mean, we talk about it all the time, right? But a new poll suggests that this group in particular, it's not old people, it's not young people. It's those of you, those of us, kind of sitting in the middle, who are feeling the biggest pinch right now. We'll share that with you next on KCMO 95.7 FM. If you're a parent and you're feeling the pinch right now, you are not alone. Good morning. Happy Hump Day Wednesday. It's good to be here on KCMO. Eric Schmidt is about 10 minutes away. So a new report from the Federal Reserve shows that parents are feeling the worst about their finances in nearly a decade. And experts say stubborn inflation is in large part to blame. Now, of course, this could be a possible blow to the big guy, but, worry about that here in a couple of minutes. The percentage of parents with kids under the age of 18 that felt okay financially fell to 64% last year compared to 69% in 2022. That's the lowest level since data collection began back in 2015. Overall, the share of U.S. households that said their financial health was okay fell to 72% last year, the lowest since 2016, according to the study. The figure ticked down from 73% in 2022 and 78% in 2021 when Joe Biden took office. The Fed surveyed 11,000 adults conducted in October of last year, found 35% said price hikes were the main source of financial worry, up from 33% the previous year. And the group that feels like it's getting hit the most are parents. Now, no one's feeling great about things, but let's be honest. If you're a senior, if the kids are out of the house, if you've, got a paid off home, if, maybe you're wrapping up a low mortgage that you've had for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you're in a pretty good spot right now. Heck, even if you've got some retirement savings, you can make 5% risk-free in a money market right now. That's pretty damn good. It's like Mark Falter, our investment guy, has said on the show before. He said people talk about the late 70s and how terrible the economy was, and no doubt inflation was brutal then, worse than now, but it was bad then. But the people who were at retirement age were doing pretty well because of the returns they could get on their investments at basically no risk. And that's true today, too. Have you seen some of the memes of it'll be like a bunch of people in their late 60s, early 70s, like dancing, doing the Macarena or something. And the underlying headline will be something along the lines of boomers after they sell their home for $2 million that they bought for $25,000 back in 1982. It's pretty funny because a lot of it's true. Like, popcorn ceilings, green carpet, $2 million. Come on in. Let's go. I mean, that's a pretty good spot to be in right now. Younger people, they're just getting their lives and careers started, but they're struggling too. But it's those with children, of which, of course, I've got 3 little ones. Mark's got 3. And many of you right now getting out the door. You got the kids. Maybe it's the last week of school, summertime starting here soon, and you're the ones feeling the biggest pinch. So then there's the political angle of this as well. What does it mean come November? It's not good enough. It never has been good enough for the administration to say, hey, look at the unemployment rate. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's great that people are working. You'd rather have a low unemployment rate than a high unemployment rate, but it's not about having a job right now. It's not that people are like, gosh, I can't find a job. It's I have a job, but I literally don't think this job can keep up with my expenses. And that's a much different problem. The first step is to acknowledge it. And the biggest issue, as far as I can tell, is the people in charge don't want to acknowledge it. They don't want to acknowledge 20% price increases the last 3 years. They don't want to acknowledge that the average family is spending $10,000 more a year than they were 3-4 years ago to live the same exact life. They don't want to acknowledge any of that. They just want to say, hey, you've got a job. Shut up and sit down. It's like, no, that's not how this works. Yeah, I want a job. We all want jobs. We all want to feel fulfilled by our jobs. But we also want to, live life. We want to be able to, take our families out, go do things, have some frivolous spending that we can afford. And for many people, it feels like even if they have some of that, they have less of it than they used to have. And that's because they do. And, if I was helping old Pops there, I would tell him to at least get up there and acknowledge the pain, especially when it's coming from parents. And don't try to fix it with some government program. Don't tell me, this is why we got to bail out your student loans and create universal pre-K. It's like, no, just acknowledge how we got here. Acknowledge the monetary policies that led us to this point. And then maybe we can have a conversation on trying to turn the tide and get things pointed in the right direction. But until we do that, as long as it's just like, the unemployment rate is low, be quiet. You should like me and like the economy. That's not working. It hasn't worked for the better part of 18 months. So I'm not sure what makes you think it's going to start working with yesterday being 24 weeks until November 2024. It's going to be here before we know it. And the messaging on this economy stuff has got to change because if not, parents, there's going to be a blowback from parents on this. They're the ones in large part. Gen Xers and older millennials who may ultimately turn the tide. And it's not even because they love Trump. Trust me, it's not going to be because of that for many of them. But it's going to be looking at their own wallets and looking at their own balance sheets in their own household and saying, this ain't working. So many I know are still in cleanup mode across Johnson County. I was talking to somebody yesterday in the afternoon who was scheduled to come by the house for something. And he said, gosh, I totally forgot. I've been dealing with this storm cleanup. My car's all banged up. I got trees in the house, the whole thing. And, it just kind of came through on Sunday night about 10:30, 10:45. And one of the big complaints I'm seeing right now in local news is that some residents in Johnson County said they never heard the sirens alerting them. We know one of those EF1s was in Northwest Shawnee. The other one was in Prairie Village into Mission Hills. Now, I'm going to defend the National Weather Service for a second here. First off, sirens themselves are intended for people outdoors. That has become a staple here that the National Weather Service has talked about a lot the last bunch of years. It's not intended for you in your home sleeping at 10:45 at night. That's what a weather radio is for. Now, of course, the weather radio would not have gone off because there was no tornado warning. But this line of storms was it was not like a classic supercell, right? Where you start to see these supercells and it's like radar indicated tornado. All right, we'll keep an eye on it. It was twisters within a massive line of storms that stretched, hundreds of miles that kind of came through 15, 20 minutes and happened to include a couple of tornadoes. I just think it's one of those things where these are still the most difficult weather phenomenons to predict. And I think the National Weather Service is frankly overly cautious at times. And Sunday night wasn't perfect, but I don't think it would have changed anything for the most part, John.
Well, you seem to get it. I mean, I grew up here in the Midwest. You didn't, but we kind of learned to have a head on a swivel, and it's not like the First Warn forecast team didn't send out an alert in the morning about later today. I mean, figuratively speaking, they put out these warnings in advance to at least have your head up and be aware.
Yeah.
From that point on, it's up to you.
I got a crash course doing 2 years of unofficial weather training in Oklahoma with guys who had done it for a lifetime. So
they just took you to the center of it all.
They literally, they put me in the vans and they said, we're teaching you how to do this and we're teaching you how to read the radars and everything else. So, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm Luke Doris on KCTV5, but I got the old crash course, and I think we got to cut these guys a little bit of a break here. Sometimes these things just happen. I'd rather that than a tornado watch or something like that every day when there's like a 2% chance. You don't want to end up in that situation because then you're the boy who cried wolf.
Right, then you just ignore it.
Yes, exactly. But you're right. They did say on Sunday, hey, late tonight, we got some storms blowing through.
We typically have a heads up that it's going to get a little rough.
Yeah, be aware.
And you got to use common sense. Like it cooled off now. Well, it's going to be a little cooler than normal, so it's going to heat back up, kicking off another set of storms at some point.
Yeah, it could be Friday, it looks like, what they're saying now. Now, I did look at the Evergy outage map this morning, and there's still hundreds of people in the area, mostly in Johnson County, who still do not have power and could be waiting until tonight to get that power back. And Evergy said as of yesterday, they have restored power to 90% of the over 100,000 customers impacted by those severe storms on both sides of our state line on Sunday night. But there still are several hundred people who don't have that power. So just something to note here as we roll through the morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I know for most of us, it wasn't that bad on Sunday night. Like, I didn't even wake up on Sunday night. Mark was wide awake. He had, 7 different parlays going on NBA playoff games, I think.
Oh, yeah. I was keeping a watch out.
You were keeping a watch out. I wasn't. I was asleep. Now, I've got the weather radio right next to me where I sleep, and I'm well aware of what's going on. But, I might have woken up for a brief moment and, heard some wind, heard some rain, but it wasn't all that bad. So I didn't really think anything of it. But, Mark was wide awake. He was ready to send the kids down to the basement.
Oh, yeah. It was windy and rainy for about 10, 15 minutes, and then it went on to the next thing.
Yeah. Bob's in Prairie Village. What's up, Bob? You're on KCMO.
Hi, Pete. You're talking about that tornado. I was sitting in my computer area in front of my house. At about 10:30, I was getting ready to go to bed, and all of a sudden, I hear this noise coming, and it kept louder and louder and louder, and I couldn't believe it. It sounded, you talk about a train.
Mm-hmm.
This thing sounded just like a train coming, and it was noisy. It was terrible.
And how'd you hold up? How'd your house do?
Well, surprisingly enough, I did fine. But, you go a couple of 100 feet from my house, trees coming down, branches, large trees. The guy across the street, he had a tree come down, or part of a tree on his garage. Down the street, there was one on the top of a car.
Mm-hmm.
It was unbelievable. And in back of the house across the street from me, there was this flame shooting up the telephone pole where I guess the wires started coming down from a tree branch. And that was kind of scary. I had to call the police on that one to get them to come in and look at that. Or I guess they did eventually. The fire department or Evergy, somebody came.
You got your power there, Bob?
Oh, yeah.
Good.
We've had power.
Good.
We've had power.
All right.
We didn't have Spectrum. Spectrum went out in all my computers. But
well, that means you can't stream us, but you can pull us up on the old school radio on 95.7 FM.
That's what I was doing. I was listening to you on the radio for about a day and a half.
All right. Well, hey, you're back in the saddle, Bob. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I just feel like we had I know it was an EF1. It's not like Greenfield, Iowa yesterday. That town just got smoked. But still, we had a tornado through a major population center. Thank goodness, no fatalities or anything like that. But I do feel like it's been a bit undercovered and underreported here in some sectors of local media. And today is, by the way, gosh, can you believe it? 13 years since the Joplin tornado.